They worked together on 3 famous films, but were complete opposites. One was disciplined, prepared, and precise. The other was unpredictable, demanding, and difficult. When this troubled star directed One-Eyed Jacks, he created such chaos that the studio took the film away from him. Years later, when this legendary actor was sick and dying, Malden offered to visit. The response was cold. It's no use. It marked the end of a complicated relationship that shaped film history. He was born in Chicago on March 22, 1912. His name was Mladen George Sekulovich, but the world would later know him as Karl Malden. It was also his mother's 20th birthday that day. His father, Petar, came from a small Serbian village near Bileća, bringing old-world traditions to a new country. He started as a carpenter in Chicago, but soon moved the family to Gary, Indiana, where the steel mills offered steady work. Mladen's mother, Minnie, was Czech and worked as a seamstress. She loved theater and passed that passion down to her son. At home, they only spoke Serbian. He didn't speak a word of English until kindergarten. That language stayed with him for life, even long after he became famous. In Gary, the Serbian community was tight-knit. His father didn't just work in the mills, he kept their culture alive. He created the first Serbian choir in the United States and later helped start the Serbian Singing Federation. Their house became a gathering place filled with music, faith, and tradition. Mladen joined the Karađorđe choir as a teen. He also acted in Serbian plays put on by his father at the local Orthodox church. These shows weren't just for fun. They told stories from Serbian history and mythology, shaping his love for acting. In high school, he acted in English too, playing Puba in The Mikado. He was also a star athlete. At Emerson High School, from 1927 to 1931, Mladen played on the basketball team and did well in his classes. But basketball came with a price. During games, he got hit in the face. Twice. The hits changed his nose forever, giving him the unique look that Hollywood would one day recognize instantly. His nose became part of his brand. That same year, he was elected senior class president. He graduated during the Great Depression. Work was hard to find, so he joined his father in the steel mills. From 1931 to 1934, he worked 12-hour days in extreme heat, up to 120 degrees. The job was dangerous, loud, and exhausting. After 3 years, he had saved only $300. That money was everything. It was his ticket out. Before the mills, he had another shot. An athletic scholarship to a college in Arkansas. He filled out all the forms and even sold his things to prepare. But at the last moment, it slipped away. The college wanted him to play multiple sports. He refused. He only wanted to play basketball. They pulled the offer. Just like that, his dreams collapsed. So he went to work, day after day, saving every cent. Then, in 1934, with only that $300 to his name, he left for Chicago. He enrolled at the Goodman Theater School and made a bold deal. He'd pay what he had up front, and if he proved himself, they'd give him a scholarship. It worked. He trained there until 1937. By the time he left, he wasn't a mill worker anymore. He was an actor, but his name was still Mladen Sekulovich. That soon changed. Theater producers wanted something easier to say. At first, he thought they were firing him, but no, they just wanted a new name. So he rearranged the letters of Mladen into Malden and took Karl from his grandfather. Even though it hurt, he agreed. Still, he found a way to keep a piece of himself. In almost every film he made, he included the name Sekulovich somewhere. It was his quiet tribute to his roots. His first film role came in 1940. It was a small part in They Knew What They Wanted, with Carol Lombard and Charles Laughton. The role wasn't big, and no one noticed him. Just as he started, the world changed. After Pearl Harbor, he joined the Army Air Forces. From 1942 to 1946, he served with the 8th Air Force, one of the deadliest divisions in World War II. He rose to the rank of sergeant and even acted in a military play called Winged Victory to raise morale. That play became a film. The war paused his acting career, but not his passion. When he came home, he went back to work. But before all of that, back in 1938, he had found something even more important: love. At Goodman Theater, he met Mona Greenberg, who used the stage name Mona Graham. They got married on December 18, 1938. They stayed married for 70 years, one of the longest marriages in Hollywood history. They had 2 daughters. She stood by him through it all, from small roles to an Oscar win to television fame. In 1946, Karl Malden walked into a Broadway rehearsal room and met a young actor who would change his life: Marlon Brando. The play was Truckline Cafe. It was a mess. It closed after just 13 performances. One critic even said it was the worst play he had ever seen. But none of that mattered. What people remembered was Brando. Brando played a broken ex-soldier. Right before stepping on stage, he would run up and down stairs, trying to stir up the right emotion. Then he'd walk out and explode with energy. He didn't act like anyone else. He didn't sound like anyone else. He felt real. Audiences went wild. Some clapped for 2 full minutes before the play could continue. People screamed, stomped, and shouted. It was chaos, and it was magic. Malden saw it all up close. He watched Brando pause at just the right moments, tweak his lines for effect, and gripped the audience like a puppet master. Brando walked away with the most promising newcomer title that year. Malden walked away with a new path. That moment changed everything. Then came the moment that defined him: a streetcar named Desire. The show opened in 1947. Brando was Stanley. Jessica Tandy played Blanche. Malden was Mitch, the shy, kind man who falls for Blanche, then pushes her away after learning her secrets. The show ran for 855 performances. It won the Pulitzer. It won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award. Malden's performance hit hard because it wasn't flashy. It was human. Karl Malden had already made a name for himself on Broadway, but in 1951, everything changed. He brought his role as Mitch from a streetcar named Desire to the big screen. Hollywood wasn't sure if he could make the jump from stage to film. Studios often replaced stage actors with movie stars. Jessica Tandy was replaced by Vivien Leigh, but director Elia Kazan fought to keep Malden, along with Marlon Brando and Kim Hunter. That decision changed film history. Malden played Mitch, the shy, lonely man who falls for Blanche. His soft-spoken honesty was the perfect contrast to Brando's wild, angry Stanley. The filming wasn't easy. Malden had to adjust his performance for the camera. On stage, everything is big. On screen, every little look matters. He found that balance. The set was designed to feel smaller as the movie went on, just like the pressure closing in on the characters. Malden held his ground, delivering a performance that felt honest and full of pain. A Streetcar Named Desire became a landmark in film. It was where classic theater met the new method style that would soon take over Hollywood. Then came Oscar night, March 20th, 1952. The Academy Awards at the RKO Pantages Theater. Malden, the son of immigrant parents from Chicago, won Best Supporting Actor. His speech was short and humble. He thanked Kazan and Tennessee Williams. But the moment was huge. The film won 3 acting Oscars. Vivien Leigh won Best Actress. Kim Hunter won Best Supporting Actress. And Malden stood beside them. He had beaten stars like Peter Ustinov and Leo Genn. Warner Brothers had taken a gamble adapting the play. It cost $1.8 million, but the film earned $8 million in North America. Malden was now more than a theater actor. He was one of Hollywood's most respected talents. In 1954, he teamed up with Kazan and Brando again, this time for On the Waterfront. Malden played Father Barry, a priest who wasn't afraid to fight for justice. He drank with dock workers. He stood up to the mob. In one famous scene, he gave a fiery speech over the body of a murdered longshoreman, while blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. That moment stuck with audiences. He didn't just act. He made you feel every word. The film was shot in the freezing winter of Hoboken, New Jersey. It was brutal, but it gave the film a real, gritty feeling. Malden became the voice of morality in the story. He pushed Brando's character, Terry Malloy, to do the right thing. His line, "Taking Joey Doyle's life to stop him from testifying is a crucifixion," hit hard. Malden was nominated for another Oscar. He didn't win, but his role stayed with people for years. Working with Brando wasn't easy. On the Waterfront, Brando did things his own way. Sometimes after a scene, the cast had to wait, just in case Brando walked back in and changed something. He'd talk to the camera crew like nothing was happening, even after Kazan yelled, "Action!" Then, he'd suddenly drop into his lines as if he were still chatting. In the coldest months of 1953, Brando was unpredictable. He arrived late. He asked for changes. He left early for therapy at 4 p.m. sharp. That meant Malden often had to perform without his scene partner, but he stayed professional. He held focus. He made sure his scenes still worked. And strangely, that added a natural tension between the characters. Malden and Brando were opposites. Brando used the method. He became the character, improvising and reacting in the moment. Malden relied on preparation. He trained at Goodman Theater in Chicago. He was older than Brando by 14 years and came from a different generation. He believed in clarity and control. Where Brando mumbled and shifted tones, Malden delivered lines with precision. During the filming of One-Eyed Jacks in 1961, Brando directed. He made actors redo scenes again and again. Malden never complained. He gave consistent performances, no matter how many takes. Despite their differences, Malden respected Brando's talent. He even helped Kazan shoot a screen test with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward to show the studio what kind of actors could deliver like Brando. In fact, Malden helped prove why someone like Brando should play Terry Malloy instead of Frank Sinatra, who had been cast first. In 1955, Karl Malden took on a role that shocked America. He played Archie Lee Megan in Baby Doll, a frustrated older man obsessed with his 19-year-old wife who still sucked her thumb and slept in a crib. The film came out in December 1956, and people were stunned. Malden, who had played more sympathetic roles before, now delivered a performance so bold that Cardinal Spellman condemned it from the pulpit. It was the first time he had ever attacked a movie from the altar. The Catholic Legion of Decency rated it condemned, and Warner Brothers later pulled it. But controversy made it famous. It got multiple award nominations, and Malden became a name people couldn't ignore. Instead of sticking to one kind of role, Malden kept surprising audiences. In 1957's Fear Strikes Out, he played a controlling father whose pressure pushes his son, baseball player Jimmy Pearsall, to a mental breakdown. The performance was so intense that people said they watched the movie just for Malden. Then he switched gears. In 1960, he was the kind and upright Reverend Ford in Disney's Pollyanna. Just 2 years later, in Birdman of Alcatraz, he played a stern prison warden opposite Burt Lancaster. That film scored several Oscar nominations, and Malden proved he could play anything: villains, fathers, holy men, or hard-edged officials. He didn't just act, he transformed. In 1961, Malden reunited with Marlon Brando for One-Eyed Jacks. It sounded like a great idea, but things went wrong fast. Brando had bought the rights to a Western novel and cycled through several writers, including Twilight Zone's Rod Serling and a young Sam Peckinpah. Stanley Kubrick was supposed to direct, but after months of conflict, like Brando literally putting a stopwatch on the table during meetings, Kubrick walked away. The fight over casting sealed it. Kubrick wanted Spencer Tracy for the role of Dad Longworth. Brando insisted on Malden. In the end, Kubrick was out, and Brando took over as director, despite never having directed before. Filming was chaos. It started in October 1958, and Brando admitted he had no idea what he was doing. He shot more than 1 million feet of film, 6 times more than normal. He wanted every shot perfect. The light had to be right. The waves had to hit at the right moment. Everything had to line up. The crew waited. Time dragged on. A storm in Los Angeles destroyed sets. Death Valley temperatures hit 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Brando kept gaining weight, and they had to adjust costumes and camera angles. What was meant to be a 3-month shoot turned into 6 months. The $2 million budget exploded to $6 million. When it was finally edited, the trouble continued. Brando's cut was up to 8 hours long. He showed it to Paramount in 1961. Executives were horrified. The original ending showed the lead woman being killed by her own father. Paramount took the film away from Brando, cut 4 hours, and even filmed new scenes without him. The studio changed entire characters. Malden's role was rewritten, losing the moral complexity he had worked so hard to build. Brando quit in disgust and never directed again. Still, One-Eyed Jacks received praise for its cinematography and was later selected for preservation by the Library of Congress. In 1962, Malden joined another massive project, How the West Was Won. It wasn't just a Western. It used a special 3-lens system that needed curved screens, which cost theaters $25,000 each to install. Malden played Zebulon Prescott, a frontier father who dies in rapids. He insisted on doing his own dangerous stunts. The film had a huge $15 million budget, but earned $50 million. It got 8 Oscar nominations and won 3. With names like James Stewart, Debbie Reynolds, and Gregory Peck alongside him, Malden still stood out. His tragic death scene became unforgettable. He proved again that he could hold his own in an epic. Then came The Cincinnati Kid in 1965. Malden played Shooter, a poker dealer with a spotless reputation, until he gets blackmailed for $12,000. At first, Sam Peckinpah directed the film, but producers fired him after one day because his version was too dark. Norman Jewison took over. Malden had to show a man torn between his values and survival. His wife's secrets were being used against him. The role was quiet but powerful. Even with rising star Steve McQueen and legend Edward G. Robinson in the cast, Malden never faded into the background. He made Shooter's struggle feel real, and the gritty streets of New Orleans only added to the weight of every decision his character made. By 1970, Malden was cast in Patton as General Omar Bradley. It was a subtle but critical role. Bradley himself was a consultant on the film, and he didn't like the real Patton very much, so Malden had to play the real man while the real man watched. The film came out during the Vietnam War and made over $62 million on a $12.6 million budget. George C. Scott's Patton was loud and unpredictable. Malden's Bradley was calm and steady. He showed how leaders rise not by shouting, but by staying grounded. Critics said his performance gave the film its moral anchor. Patton won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture. Karl Malden had already built a solid career in Hollywood when everything changed in 1972. He was 60 years old when he landed the role of Detective Mike Stone in The Streets of San Francisco. It aired first on Saturday nights before moving to Thursdays. Malden played a veteran cop, a widower with more than 20 years of experience. He mentored a young inspector named Steve Keller, played by a then-unknown Michael Douglas, who was only 28. Their chemistry was instant. It wasn't just great acting, it felt real. On screen, they worked like a seasoned duo. Off-screen, they became true friends. Even years later, in 1996, Malden called Douglas the son I never had. Douglas called him my mentor. Malden gave everything to the role. He was nominated for 4 Emmys from 1974 to 1977, but never won. The show ran for 5 seasons and had 119 hour-long episodes. But when Douglas left at the start of the final season to focus on film, ratings dropped. Still, the show left its mark, and Malden's role became one of his most loved. Then, in 1975, something unexpected happened. Malden became the face of American Express. Wearing his trademark fedora, he warned viewers with a serious tone, "Don't leave home without them." The ads focused on travelers' checks, telling cautionary tales of people losing cash while traveling. It worked. The campaign became iconic. Created by ad legend David Ogilvy, it turned Malden into more than just an actor. He was now a trusted public figure. The slogan later changed to "Don't leave home without it," to promote their credit cards. Malden kept doing those commercials for over 20 years. No other American Express spokesperson made that kind of impact. In 1985, Malden showed once again why he was more than a commercial face. He played Freddie Kassab in the TV miniseries Fatal Vision, based on the true story of Jeffrey McDonald, a man convicted of killing his pregnant wife and 2 kids. Malden played the heartbroken father-in-law who sought justice. His performance was powerful, restrained, and deeply moving. He won the Emmy for Best Supporting Actor in a limited series. He was 73 years old. This win added to a long list of honors, including an Oscar for A Streetcar Named Desire in 1951 and a nomination for On the Waterfront in 1954. The Emmy proved he still had it, on TV and film, across decades. A few years later, in 1989, Malden took on a new role, not on screen, but behind the scenes. He became president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. He held the position until 1992. During that time, he led 3 Oscar ceremonies. His leadership style was calm, respectful, and full of integrity. He had earned the trust of Hollywood through decades of steady work and professionalism. As president, he helped the Academy stay true to its roots, while also adapting to changes in the film world. In 1997, Malden published his memoir. The book was called When Do I Start? A Memoir, and he wrote it with his daughter Carla. It was 368 pages long and gave a close look at his journey. From a boy named Mladen George Sekulovich in Gary, Indiana, to an Oscar-winning actor, it wasn't full of gossip. Instead, it focused on acting, his method, his mentors, and his passion. He wrote about working with legends like Elia Kazan, Lee Strasberg, and Marlon Brando. Critics praised the book for its honesty and depth. Then came a bold move in 1999. At 84, Malden stood before the Academy Board and nominated Elia Kazan for an honorary Oscar. Kazan had helped launch Malden's career, but had also testified during the McCarthy era, naming names of former communists. It was a decision that divided Hollywood for decades. Malden knew the risks, but he stood by his choice. "This is about a body of work," he said. "Politics has no place in art." The board agreed and approved the honor, but the real drama came during the Oscar ceremony. Malden's old friend, Marlon Brando, refused to present the award to Kazan. Others, like Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese, stepped in. The room was split. Some stars stood and clapped. Others stayed seated and didn't applaud. Outside the venue, 250 people protested. What was meant to be a tribute became a heated moment in Oscar history. Malden found himself at the center of a debate about forgiveness, loyalty, and the cost of truth. In 2000, Karl Malden acted one final time. He appeared in an episode of The West Wing called Take This Sabbath Day. He played a priest, giving advice on capital punishment. The role was simple, quiet, and full of moral weight. It felt like the perfect goodbye. His first film role had been in 1940. Now, 60 years later, he closed the curtain on a career filled with purpose, dignity, and impact. Karl Malden always admired Marlon Brando, but he was also frustrated. They worked together on 3 major films: A Streetcar named Desire in 1951, On the Waterfront in 1954, and One-Eyed Jacks in 1961. Malden saw Brando's talent up close. He also saw the chaos that came with it. Sometimes Brando would leave a scene, and the cast had to wait almost 2 full minutes before continuing. It broke the rhythm. Everyone felt it. Malden stayed focused and professional, but Brando didn't always do the same. As the 1960s rolled in, things got worse. After Mutiny on the Bounty in 1962, director Louis Milestone publicly called Brando a ham actor and a petulant child. Studios became nervous. Brando's reputation made him hard to work with. Malden watched as the man once seen as a genius lost control of his career. By 1970, Brando had racked up a string of box office flops. His early promise seemed gone. Malden never lost his work ethic, and it hurt to see someone so gifted waste it all. Then, in 1972, Brando shocked everyone with his comeback in The Godfather, but by then, Malden couldn't help but wonder, how much greater could Brando have been if he had stayed focused? Their last talk came in 2004. Brando was 80 and very sick. He had heart trouble, diabetes, liver cancer. He needed an oxygen mask just to breathe. He called Malden and quietly said, "I keep falling over." Malden offered to visit. He wanted to help. Brando replied with just 3 words, "It's no use." That was the last time they spoke. 3 weeks later, on July 1st, 2004, Brando died from respiratory failure. In the end, he had refused treatments that might have helped him live longer. He chose to be alone with just a housekeeper and his dog. It was a lonely, quiet end for a man who once ruled Hollywood. Karl Malden passed away exactly 5 years later, also on July 1st, in 2009. He was 97. He died at home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, after years of declining health. He was buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery alongside other legends. Michael Douglas, a longtime friend and co-star, wrote a tribute for Time magazine. He called Malden a mentor he deeply admired. Critics remembered Malden as one of the greatest character actors of his time. Charles Chaplin said he was an everyman who could play anyone, from heroes to villains to ordinary men just trying to survive.